Thank you, Gio. I think that's the first time I've ever had food smacking lips to introduce myself, and I like it. Zenhunzu, good day, everyone. Hadit Siane, Spoozy, Janelle Lapointe, Stellatin, Incas, Luxoyu SC, Haudenosaunee, Mississaugas, Anishinaabe, Kubla Yangkat, Etspa, Ninja, Nasya. Hi, everyone. I was just introducing myself in my Indigenous language. My name is Janelle, as I already introduced, and I'm from a tiny community called Stella in rural Canada, but I now call Treaty 13 territory the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Mississaugas of the Credit, also known as Toronto, Ontario, home as of a month ago now. I'm really, really excited to be here with you all. Acknowledging the Indigenous territories is a common practice here in so-called Canada, but beyond that, it's really grounded in protocols, Indigenous peoples. It's very common for us when we meet with one another to introduce the communities we come from, the clan we're a part of, and our matrilineal line. So for me, my grandmother is a Dakat elder. I grew up on her Indigenous territory. And she really taught me so much about language and culture and what it means to have responsibility to the land. And my grandfather on my matrilineal side was a Black and Choctaw man born in Hobbs, New Mexico. So I have a big, beautiful Afro-Indigenous family that I'm all really proud of. And if you want to learn more about the Indigenous territories you're on, I'll drop a resource in the chat called native.land.ca. And I think it's really relevant to this conversation about power because, we are told that power comes from conquering, it comes from taking power, as in taking land, taking labor from everyday people. But for me, power comes from knowing that there are alternate cultures, ways of being, ways of looking after one another, and ways of looking at the land that have guided Indigenous people, not just here in so-called Canada or there in the United States, but globally that we can draw from. So I encourage you to flip through the map and learn a bit more about the Indigenous nations whose land you're on. So excited to be in part two. Welcome back to those who were here in week one. And for those of us who are just joining us, no worries. We'll walk you through a little recap and I will be sure to send the slides over to all participants so that you have time to work through all of the maps and the tools. We only have a really short time together today. So what I hope to give you is just a couple of exercises, a toolkit of different strategies and tactics, and would encourage you on your own time to go deeper through all the resources to really get clear about where your next moves are to take power. If you're just joining us, I would love if you could drop in the chat just some words that come to mind when you hear the word power. Feel free to put as many as you would like, just what comes to mind when you hear the word power. And as you do that, I will queue up my slides. I see the word solidarity, strength, able to act, be an agent, ownership of oneself, how you show up, influence, care. Awesome. Feel free to keep dropping in the chat. This is how we started off week one, and we always get a range of answers. In week one, we also saw some words that maybe have a bit more of a heavy or negative connotation like domination or control. But we also have these really beautiful words like care and reciprocity. So to begin, I'm just reviewing, sorry, just having a hard time with my slides here. There we go. There we go. Reviewing the different types of power. Power is a wide range of spectrum, and it really has to do with who is wielding it and how it's built. But these are just some terms that could be used to maybe compartmentalize different types of power you're thinking of. So we have power over, control, dominance. It's often hierarchical and to control. And this is unfortunately the type of power that we see rewarded under capitalism, under colonialism, and dominant systems of oppression. But we have all these other types of power, power with collective strength. We see that word shared in the chat, solidarity, shared goals. We have power within. This is your inner confidence, dignity, sense of agency. I definitely saw some words that make me think of power within. You have structural power, power embedded in systems, institutions, laws, narrative power, the ability to shape meaning, stories, and what people believe is true and possible. Economic power, the control of money, land, labor, and other material resources. Cultural power, the ability to influence values, traditions, and collective identity. And political power, the ability to shape policy, make decisions on behalf of a group, and influence governance and public outcomes. So this is just some definitions that you can use through your mapping process to maybe think about different types of power. And really, as progressive movements and movements for change, we need to wield different types of power at different times. And our tactics and strategy could also be geared to building certain types of power versus one another. And so this, I think, just helps make power less of an ambiguous term and to really get us thinking in certain ways we want to take or wield our own power. But that's how we introduced week one. And week one was all about really looking at our own power within our own networks. So power, not just power within and power as an individual, but acknowledging that we all exist in institutions, we all exist in personal networks, and those are the places where we actually often go to build power or to wield power. And I love that the check-in question was about like where you organize. It's really funny. I feel like both the check-ins for both week kind of teed me up, even though I didn't even share share with the Ujima staff or ask for any specific questions. But we know from looking at movement history that a lot of movements were won through certain institutions or through organizing in certain places. And I think as this new generation comes, we're doing more online sharing. We just had a serious health pandemic that took us away from physical space and physical institutions. We're kind of coming back to those places and coming back to those homes. And yeah, I love that we're already starting to think about those places because I think that will help with the exercises today. But for week one, just to recap, and again, I'll send these slides over so that you can do these exercises on your own time. We just started by mapping our personal network. So people drew themselves at the center and then just drew all the places in our network, institutions they're part of, people that they go to, places of potential. And then I asked folks to ask these questions like, who do you call? Where do you go when you need to make something happen? Like, star that on your map, give it a big circle. What institutions or people shape outcomes in your day-to-day life? What type of power is in your map? Are there places where organizing's already happened? And just got folks to really expand on their map, to maybe write the different types of power, to draw lines connecting different groups together. And then folks left with one place where they want to invest a little bit more time or energy. This week, we're going to start thinking about, just stop sharing for one second here. We're going to think, take those personal networks and personal places of power and start thinking of more of a movement level. And there's a quote I really love by Jonathan Smucker, who was a part of the Occupy Wall Street movement. And in his book, Debriefing That Experience, he has this quote that really stuck with me where he asks, like, everyone talks about the movement, but like, what is the movement? And I was thinking about my own organizing context, and I was like, wait, like who actually do I consider the movement? It's really important that we actually define who the movement is if we're thinking about building power, we're thinking about building certain tactics or strategy that empowers our base, empowers the movement. And so the exercise today is to help us define the movement and to look again, like where are opportunities for power, what tactics or strategy will empower what we consider our movement. So folks are going to need a piece of paper, a writing utensil. Um, so feel free to grab that if you haven't already. And the first thing we're going to do is to, if you are a participant in week one, you can pick one item from your power map. If you weren't here, just think of a place of power in your personal network. So again, this could be a group of people. This could be the physical organizing space that you named in your introduction, or maybe it's an institution you're part of. It could be your workplace. I have some examples here. Maybe it's our school board, maybe it's a tenant union, and just answer these questions on the chat. So have your map anchor, for example, local school board. Then beside it, write who's impacted by this institution. So in this case, it would be students and parents. And then think about what you would want to shift in this place of power. So in this case, I said a decision on what curriculum gets taught in our schools. And then what collective action can move this example, I put showing up en masse to a school board meeting, and would encourage you just to brainstorm as much as possible, get as many examples on paper. And what we are really looking for is on that final column, what collective action can move this, is to remember that good strategy isn't always about the biggest move, it's about the right move. And so ask yourself, like, what's winnable? What's meaningful? What would build our base and really energize what we consider the movement? And yeah, and just encourage folks to practice that muscle of thinking of different collective actions that could really impact some of their anchors on their map. So we're going to give folks 10 minutes. I'll play some music. And again, don't get stuck too much on trying to build out a perfect strategy. This is just to get us kind of warmed up at thinking about the movement. Are there any questions for this exercise? Let's stop sharing so I can see you all. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So I will put that screen back up so you know what you're doing, and we will have 10 minutes and I will play some music in the meantime. Awesome. So we'll be back at 55 after. All right, folks. Inviting you to finish up your last sentence. We're going to be moving on, but again, if you want to drop in your chat a move that emerged off your map, feel free to do so. But we also talked a lot about week one about the power of just like naming an idea or the things that you want to do, the places you want to build power into the room so that we all can kind of collectively witness and breathe life into it. But no pressure if you didn't land on anything concrete. And okay, we're gonna move on to the next exercise, which is called the spectrum of allies. So again, this is really about defining like what it is we consider the movement. And what we know is that everyone is not with us and that we need to build uh, bigger movements, create more allies on our issues, but it's also true that not everyone is against us. And so getting really clear on key players on your issue and campaign is really crucial to thinking about certain strategy or tactics that you can use um, to shift people closer. And that doesn't mean that everyone is going to be active allies, that everyone is going to be organizing on your issue perhaps as actively as you are. But building a movement can even look like bringing your opposition to just being neutral about the issue, or turning a neutral person into someone that shows up once in a while to support your issue, and people that are showing up once in a while, like turning them into active allies, people that are really throwing down for your issue. So, gonna invite folks to map out a quadrant such as the one shown on the right of the page. So, on your left-hand side, you're gonna say active allies. So again, these are people that are really showing up for your campaign. They're the organizers, they're the activists, the advocates, the people that you can count on to really act on an issue. Passive allies are, again, those people that show up once in a while to act, but may not consider the campaign or issue their top issue that they're worried about. Neutral are the people in the mushy middle who perhaps you ask them their opinion on the issue and they might say something like, I don't know enough about that, or I don't like to be too political, or they don't really have a stance. Your passive opposition is again the flip of the ally side. So perhaps there are people that show up to oppose your issue every once in a while. And then your active opposition are your absolute ops. These are your enemies. These are people that are stifling progress on your campaign or your issue. Perhaps they're the target of your campaign or your issue. And encourage folks to write out those quadrants and just to fill out as many people as you can. And you'll probably find that doing the active allies and the active opposition are the easy part, and filling out the middle is a bit harder, but would encourage you to try to spend equal time to get as many people on your campaign or issue area onto the map. And I encourage you also to be specific. So you may be tempted to write something like unions in one part of the quadrant, but maybe you want to get more specific and write certain unions in different quadrants. Or maybe you want to say parents, but that's not specific enough. Maybe you want to write mothers in low-income communities on your passive ally quadrant. And then once you've mapped, would encourage folks to look and think about what common values unite the people on the left side of the quadrant, your allies. And then to think about who's movable along the spectrum and what would it take to bring them closer to allyship. And I will also drop a resource in the chat. I'm just going to stop sharing to do that. A resource in the chat that has a list of different tactics. You can look through this on your own time to, again, like think of these tactics and ask yourself, what would energize your base? What would move people into allyship? What would grow the movement? And this is a really awesome toolbox that has a whole bunch of different tactics, but they also have some organizing stories, some principles, some theories of change from Beautiful Trouble. I really encourage folks to dig in. Yeah, we're going to spend, again, 10 more minutes trying to map your spectrum of allies. And then we're going to spend our last 5 minutes together sharing out who's movable. Who do you think you want to focus your energy? What section of that quadrant is your target in your organizing? I know time together is flying, so I'll just get folks to get writing. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat and I'll answer as they come up. But I will just get that slide up for folks to take a look. It sounds good now.
Oh, it's good now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your
All right, my last two, one is ICE, and I said that they have more power and they're against what I believe in. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. There's been a lot of ICE raids within my community, and again, that's something that I stand against and I don't believe should be what is a part of our community or what our community is viewed as. And my last one was the mayor's office, and I think that my group and I will be able to demonstrate our power and how much care we have for what we believe in. And right now in the moment, at my job, we're focusing on more funding for youth jobs in Boston, specifically for BIPOC people, or youth in Boston. And I think by showing up to like events like these and demonstrating our power, we'll be able to, get the mayor to do some things and make some changes and arrangements. Thank you.
Clap it up for your peer.
Awesome. Yeah, let's show some love for sharing. Thank you for your patience with the tech. Really appreciate you sharing. And would love to hear more folks, but I think we have got to go. Again, time just flies in these little sessions, but it's been so wonderful. Thank you for everyone who came to week 1 into week 2. I'm going to drop the slides in the chat for you to flip through. And again, would really encourage folks to take more time in your personal time to go deeper on these exercises. I hope they were helpful and that they can reveal some places in power, either in your personal network, in your movement, and that you can continue to dream and strategize ways to take our power back. If folks don't know much about the Organizing Center, I'll drop our link in the chat as well. We offer public workshops for groups on leadership development, having courageous conversations, and building strong coalitions. And we really take the problems from groups and spend a lot of time workshopping them in a community of practice and give you a lot of self-paced learning and tools that you can take into your organizing. And that's a longer form workshop where we can really get into the nitty-gritty and the challenges that you're all facing in the field. And yeah, again, thanks so much for having me. I look forward to potentially joining some Ujima sessions as a participant, and wish you well as you transition into your meeting.